911 operators, what is that one call that you could never forget? I had a call that started out pretty dumb, but was actually pretty serious. 911, where is your emergency? 123 Main Street. Okay, what's going on there? I'd like to order a pizza for delivery. Oh great, another prank call. Mom, you've reached 911. Yeah, I know. Can I have a large with half pepperoni, half mushroom and peppers? I'm sorry, you know you've called 911 right? Yeah. Do you know how long it will be? Okay. Mom, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency? Yes, I do. And you can't talk about it because there's someone in the room with you. Moment of realization. Yes, that's correct. Do you know how long it will be? I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house? Nope. Can you stay on the phone with me? Nope. See you soon. Thanks. As we dispatch the call, I check the history at the address and see there are multiple previous domestic violence calls. The officer arrives and finds a couple. Female was kind of banged up and boyfriend was drunk. Officer arrests him after she explains that the boyfriend had been beating her for a while. I thought she was pretty clever to use that trick. Definitely one of the most memorable calls. Whoa, I really hope that every 911 operator has the same level of quick critical thinking skills that you have. Very impressive. Holly motorcycle tipped over and the clutch lever went into a 4-year-old's eye. Parent was on the line asking what to do. Suddenly, she said, "They're going lift the motorcycle." I emphatically told her to tell them to stop and wait for rescue and EMS. Rescue ended up cutting off the clutch lever and transporting the kid to hospital. She underwent surgery. That was 1982. Just last year, I met the lead rescue officer and the girl herself, now fully grown. They wanted to meet the 911 operator that saved her vision. The one that stayed with me, gave childbirth instructions to a deaf father via relay for his deaf wife. They were the victims of a home invasion and were tied to chairs. Burglars saw her in labor, panicked, then left. Took dad hours to free himself and call. While giving the instructions, I obtained a suspect description to put out to surrounding agencies. They were caught in the city to our north during the call. Baby boy was born perfectly healthy. That's incredible and terrifying. Incredible that it ended well and that they escaped. Terrifying that something like that has happened. Glad it had a good outcome. I'm a dispatcher for a cab company. One day I got a call from an old man who seemed as if his voice was trembling. I'm naturally polite as I asked for his drop-off address. He said the emergency room. I casually said, feeling a little under the weather, eh? I tried to take my life. I vomited most of the pills up and now I feel miserable. Can you send a cab quick? Certainly sir. Anything else I can do for you? I talked to him for 15 minutes before the cab pulled up and the driver carried him out to his car. He told me his life story and why he tried to end it. I visited him in the hospital as soon as my shift was over. He still calls for a cab every day to take him to a barbecue restaurant. I spent time doing OnStar telematics type stuff, and the moments you remember are those when you're still connected to the vehicle once the dispatch has been made after an accident. I've heard a brother beg for his other brother not to die as he bled out. Not sure if he actually did. The one that has stuck with me the most is the one I initially heard the least on. Airbag signal, connected to vehicle. I heard a sigh and then silence outside. Nothing but the sounds of passing traffic. A co-worker then completes the dispatch. Standard procedure, and I attempt to make contact a time or two with no luck. It's simply a matter of remaining on the line to listen to make sure the ambulance gets there. Then, a car stops and I hear talking in the background. Soon after, someone else stops. Finally, someone starts a last rites type of prayer after asking someone to join hands. I realize then that what I heard at the very beginning of the call was their last breath. The only time that this person's entire existence crossed mine was at the last possible moment, and they don't even know it. Life is fickle. Be good to everyone. It creeps me out thinking of the inside of that car after the driver has died. Your voice checking and periodically trying to make contact, but no one there to hear you. Shivers. So sad. And at the same time, I think it was good they weren't entirely alone when they went. What a hard job. My first call I ever had to dispatch on the radio. 2 homeless dudes blowing each other on the bus. I'm sorry it's not serious, or traumatic, but it will always stay with me. This is dispatch. We have a code 69. 2 men exchanging blows. Double quote. 911 dispatcher here. I took a call once of a house being on fire, so of course we send fire department out. Soon as they arrive on scene they ask for the police to respond. Police don't typically respond to this area with FD. Turns out the story was that a girl's fiance arrives home and dumps gas on her and lights her in fire. She then runs to the shower to try to put herself out. He follows her, turns the shower off, dumps more gas on her and lights her back on fire. She then runs through the house, thereby lighting the house on fire. She then runs out of the house as FD arrives on scene. So when FD pulled up they had arrived to a body collapsed in the yard on fire. When PD arrives, the male fiancé walks out of the burning house, lets himself into the back of a police car and says, "Take me to jail." I was a 911 dispatcher for several years and one of my most memorable calls was a hysterical woman at about midnight one stormy night. She was absolutely incomprehensible. I kept saying, Mom, you have to calm down. I can't understand you. Mom." This went on for what felt like forever. I couldn't get anything useful out of her. My officers were en route to this obviously horrifying situation. Finally, she said something about being with her sister. "How old is your sister?" One. Instantly suspicious, I asked, "How old are you?" 5. A 5-year-old boy. So that's how I inadvertently called a little boy mom many times. Oops, the storm had woken him up and his parents were gone. They went out to move their cars to shelter in case of hail. He was just very scared. My officers still responded and talked to the parents about not leaving sleeping children alone, but everybody was unscathed. It wasn't my most tragic call, but it is one I've never forgotten. Poor little mom. Poor little mom. Hahaha. Excellent story. I volunteered on a crisis call center hotline. I had just turned 18 and was fresh out of training. It was maybe my 8th or 9th shift at the center. It wasn't my first call with a suicidal person. However, it was the worst and scariest for me. This man had locked himself up in his home with a gun and was going to shoot himself. He wasn't calling to have someone talk him down. He told me that he wanted someone to hear him die. Of course, at this point, I'm trying to find out where he's at. I'm tracing his call and talking to 911 on my other phone. He says in the most calm and serious voice, "You're not going to have time for that. Just listen, and it will be over soon." I finally get a trace on the call, and I'm reporting it to the 911 operator. Then it begins. I can hear him fumbling around with the gun, and the clicking of the trigger barrel. He's getting frustrated because the gun is jammed. With each click and rattle, I'm expecting to hear the gun go off. I'm literally dripping with sweat. This goes on for some time, and I'm trying to keep him on the line and to focus on the conversation as he's trying to fix his gun. It seemed like eternity, but I finally heard the police at the door. They had to kick it down since the man refused to open it. They got the gun from him and the call ended. The cops later told us they couldn't figure out why the gun had malfunctioned. That really, he should have been dead. So he was either really lucky or not, depending on your thought on the situation. Regardless of it, I didn't last much longer as a volunteer. I started having extreme anxiety every time I picked up the phone, imagining that I was hearing the clicking of the gun. I'm 26 now, and I think I am finally in a place where I could do that type of volunteer work again. I used to work as a relay operator, 711, and often got misdialed 911 calls. We would connect them to 911, but since they connected through us, we had to stay on the line. One time I got an old woman who fell out of bed and couldn't get up. I connected her to 911 and from there they tracked her location. The 911 operator is like, "Mom, are you in such and such hospital? Are you calling from the hospital?" "Yes. I fell and no one will help me." Not sure what the 911 operator did, but about 10 minutes later you hear someone come into her room to help her up. Apparently this woman fell out of her hospital bed and no one noticed for over an hour, until she dragged herself to the phone and called 911. I was like, note to self, never go to this hospital. My mom was a 911 dispatcher for over 30 years. She had many crazy calls, but one story she told me always stuck out from the rest. One day a man called in. With a calm voice he told my mom he was in the local hotel and that he had doused himself with gasoline and was going to kill himself. He called in so they could evacuate the hotel because I don't want to hurt anyone else. While my mom is trying to talk him out of it, she is on another line to the hotel letting them know what's going on and to get everyone out. While emergency services are en route, she has to stay on the line whenever possible to keep people calm, reassure them help is on the way, and to try her best to keep track of what's up on the other end. As soon as the guy heard the sirens coming in the distance, he asked her if everyone had been evacuated yet. She tried to stall her answer, thinking he'd light himself up as soon as she said yes. Didn't work. Seconds later she stated hearing the worst screams she's ever heard, and she's heard many during that job over the years, and then the phone went static, and then silence. He died in that hotel and mom had to listen. Lousy day. They shouldn't have gone in with sirens on. That's pretty basic. This is why a friend of mine quit her operator job. About 5 years ago she got a call 1 year into her job about a 4-year-old boy who drank bleach under the care of his aunt. The ambulance was able to make it to the boy and save his life, but it was later found that the aunt made him drink it. She wanted a free ride into town to go to the casino. Very disturbing. My wife wakes up crying once in a while after dreaming about certain of her calls. It's always either mommy won't wake up or I backed over my boy. She has not been on the job for 15 years. Some things just leave marks. I wouldn't last a day in a 911 call center. I actually am a 911 operator. First ever 911 I answered was about a naked man sitting in a bathtub on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. He was drunk and we still don't know where he got the tub. Edit. West Tennessee, since everyone keeps asking. Former Sheriff's Department dispatcher in charge of non-emergency and 911 calls for a rural, southern county. I picked up the job part-time and was in the process of training. My supervisor was sitting next to me listening to my end of the call, but she was not hooked into the line to hear the whole call. Line rings. I answer. It's 911. A young girl, less than 10 years old, is telling me that she, her mother, and her baby sibling are locked in a bedroom. Her uncle is pacing around outside the door holding a knife and threatening to kill them all. She does not know the house number, fire number, where they are, and mom has basically checked out of the conversation out of fear. I have a vague idea of where she is, so I send deputies in her direction with the promise that I will get better directions. As is typical in rural areas, everybody owned a scanner and listened like it was their job. My phone starts ringing off the hook, so I am reassuring this little girl on one handset and holding a second handset up to my other ear, taking directions from concerned members of the public. Directions like go until you see a broke down truck. Keep going. When you get to the second broke down truck, turn right and continue until you see a large rock. It was also late enough in the evening that everything was dark out. The little girl tells me there might be a back door that is unlocked. Members of the public who know the house just from the general location and number gender of occupants are calling and confirming that there is a back door that my deputies should enter through and that they will not be seen by the perpetrator if he has retreated to the living room. My guys arrive, sneak in the back, walk right up to the guy sitting in a recliner, disarm him, and arrest him. Family gets emergency protective orders so he, ideally, cannot be a threat to them again. I almost quit after that call because my adrenaline was running. I was shaking, and I'd had to handle it mostly myself because my supervisor couldn't hear what was going on. I stayed with it and it was one of the best jobs I had. I quit when I moved to another state, but it was a sad decision to make. I love the thought of a community pulling together like that to help those poor kids. I am a 911 operator. My favorite call I have personally took that I won't forget is about a couple at McDonald's. They had just purchased a new vehicle and went out to celebrate the purchase at a local MCD. The wife for some reason decided she had better check the spare tire and make sure they had one before they left town and found a gun instead. I received a call from the wife stating she just accidentally shot her husband. When I was asking about exit wounds, she said it did not penetrate but burned him real badly. Turns out wife shot the husband with a flare gun when she went to show it to him. They did not finish their Big Macs and I'm not sure how that marriage ended up. He wasn't a happy man on the way to the emergency room to get burn treatment. Accidentally. Before my grandma died we had to call 911 to get her to the hospital. An older lady, for some reason still an EMT, or first responder, I forgot, came to the house. She had trouble getting up all the stairs to the front door and fell backwards. She thought she hit her head, so she touched it and saw blood all over her palm. In reality she just scraped her hands, but thought the blood was from her head, so she fainted. We had to call another ambulance. As a current EMT, what the frick? Actual 911 operator here for a major North American city. Worst 2 calls I've ever taken have both been callers who committed suicide while on the phone with me. First was a female who jumped from her apartment balcony while on the phone with me. I heard her scream the whole way down and I heard her hit the ground. I still have nightmares of just the sound of her screaming and hitting the ground. Second was a male who hung himself while talking to me. He said he didn't want to be by himself when he did it, so he called 911. He apologized for what he was about to do, but he wouldn't tell me where he was. We never got to him on time. I had to sit there with an open line and him hanging until the police finally located where he was. You know that sound in the movies you hear when someone has hung themselves? You know, the sound of the body hanging from the rope and somewhat swinging back and forth. That creaking sound the rope makes from rubbing against whatever it's tied to? Yeah, I had to listen to that sound for quite some time before he stopped swinging. To this day I can't watch a scene in a movie where someone has hung themselves without having a mini anxiety attack and almost throwing up. I've thrown up a few times soon after it had happened. This is the doggo of good health. It only appears once in 1.232 millenniums. Subscribe to Updoot Reddit in 14 seconds and you'll have good cholesterol again. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can leave a like or comment and YouTube will show this video to more people. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I post new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.